I had to cut the top of this one with the Sawzall because it just simply would not separate. You can see that there's a male there, and then it tapers into here, but this thing somehow just got a load of rust in it. That one came out, but this one was just impossible, so I left it and just cut it with a Sawzall. Now I had to get my jack out from under the vehicle to remove the subframe, because obviously the jack was right in the middle there, the middle part of the subframe holding up the engine. So I just moved the subframe to the side a little bit, and then I put jacks under the trans. The engine's still being held up by a top motor mount. It's not very good for it, but it's holding it, and then the jack's down there, and then there's another one, but only one of those jacks is touching. So now I'm going to get the jack back under the engine, and I should be able to get the trans jack with the board under the trans, and then I'll start working on getting these last final bolts out. I'm not going to get these ones at the beginning, because I think I can just get it just by removing just a couple more up in that area there, and then these. So we'll see what happens. Slightly better access with the subframe gone. You can see here you got one bolt right there, one above it up there. That's two. I just took these two bolts. These ones are the ones I mentioned earlier. They're already loosened up. There's two more that I was showing you underneath. I got a pile now. I think these ones were some of the ones that came from underneath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 bolts. That's all I got. I was able to get this thing to start separating. I'm just putting this just enough to catch it, let it slide out a little bit. Now I'm prying between that area where we had to spin the flywheel before. To me, this should be coming apart. Comes across as there may be another bolt, but I've looked and looked and looked, and I do not know where it is. This actually says remove 8, so I actually did get them. Those are the 2 you get from the front. Those are the 3 you get from the bottom. These 2 you get after you get the subframe out. That one you get from the top. Show you the diagram here. These 3 are easy to get to. These 2 are easy to get to from the front. These 2 are very hard to reach. There's a small clearance, and then for the tool you're using to loosen them, and it's do not over tighten them when you reinstall this, because those are going to be very hard to get out. And then that top one there you can get with a little extension just from the top of the engine compartment. There it is, separated. So there's a couple dowels that line this thing up, and you better be aware it's got to come out somewhat straight. But in any case, that flywheel, that's why that had to unbolt from the inside of the trans. Look, there's the spots on the trans on the torque converter. It's quite easier to understand now that it's apart. Anyways, basically I had a jack under the engine and a jack under the trans, and I raised the trans, lowered the engine, raised the engine, lower the trans, and then I was prying with my big boy here down in that window is the best way to start prying. Well, I was trying to pound a chisel, but that wasn't working. It really resists that. So, but prying seems to have a couple points where prying is acceptable. You can see a hole right there, just to the right of that flywheel, And I think that's a pry hole, because if you put your pry bar in that hole, you can push your pry bar against the trans. There's a part that sticks out there, and that seems to be a great spot to pry from. But I just jammed a bar in there once I started it. Once I got it going in, I just wiggled it like crazy, back and forth, and then I was up here at the top where it's safe, and I had my standard bent tip pry bar. These are great. Straight would be good too. Straight and bent tip probably both work for this job. I should have had one of each, but I just worked it, and I was just yanking it, pulling it, and ripping it. I had this in the gap there, and it came apart. So let me put my engine back up somewhere reasonable there. That's probably about good. Now I know this trans is heavy, but I'm going to try to pull it out anyways. It'll most likely set there on the oil pan. Well, no, the oil, it slid off the jack, so it's going to be a struggle, but I think I can do it. And that, YouTube, is how to get the transmission out. Stay tuned for the removal video, or the stay tuned for the reinstallation and rebuild. I don't know if I can rebuild it, but you know, it's a useless van without a transmission that works. The engine works and the rest of the van works, but the transmission, it won't make the wheels go. So we're gonna find out why the wheels won't go, and then hopefully from there replace the part that it needs. It probably just needs some like $30 part. I talked to a friend, he said his transmission put into limp mode and the vehicle wouldn't even go forwards or backwards, and he said all it needed was a little $30 solenoid. So difference is between him and me is I didn't get the codes read on the van before I did this. So now that I have it ripped apart, I don't know, there's no battery in there. I don't know if I can read the codes. It might be possible, but the important thing right now is that we got the transmission out, and now it's possible to take further steps of action. It really can't do much. Now, it's really going to blow me away if I take this apart and then there's nothing but a bad filter in there. I've never got the trans serviced on this thing. All I did drain the fluid and I drained out 4 quarts and put 4 quarts in. And that's when all of our transmission problems started happening. This thing's been having a severe lash when driving, like on the highway. When you would be accelerating and then you would take your foot off, there would be a clunk, and then when you would be slowing down and then you wanted to go, you'd hit the gas and it would clunk. So it was shifting badly, and so there's probably some other underlying things here. But even if I get a pro trans shop to take care of this, it's still going to be cheaper, because according to what I have been told, it's $500 or $600 worth of your fee just to get the removal and installation. So if you can do the removal and installation, hopefully without hurting yourself or damaging the vehicle any worse than it already was, you can save quite a bit of money. And then considering it's a $2,000 job, you're probably looking to save as much money as you can. But I know for my part, I could easily just pop another trans in here that I bought off the internet. Say there's a wrecked car or something and they're parting it out. You know, if this trans was good, I could change my mind and decide it's time to start parting out parts. I got a perfectly good whatever size V6 engine that's in that van. That thing could be sold to a van that's having engine problems. So, like I said, it's just about saving money at this point. We could get a lot of money out of this van. There's tons of good parts. I got the subframe out. I got the loads of bolts. I got the braking components that are fairly new. I got a battery. I got tires. I got rims with tires. I mean, I got 2 electric doors that work if somebody knew how to take those off. So it's not the end of the world if we have to part this thing out. But really, it all started with figuring out, maybe is this transmission able to be rebuilt? And I mean, obviously it can, but can I rebuild it? Because what I think a lot of times they just send in the core and then they send you back one that's already been rebuilt. So I'm gonna find out what's out there at this point. I'm probably gonna lug this thing down into my basement and then just go from there. So let's see what happens, YouTube. Peace out.